Patrick Cook here. Welcome to the next session of our Mandelbulb 3D animation ambitious project. Where we left off in the previous session, we were talking about the Mandelbulb 3D formula panel, and we had talked about there being up to 6 different formulas that can be combined, and with the 3 different types of combining these formulas. And what I'm trying to do here is to get an image that looks similar to this, with the intention of this being the basis for a high resolution, high detailed animation using the Mandelbulb 3D software. But in order to get to that point, I need to reinvent that graphic. So what I'm going to do, now from what I recall, that particular graphic needs the formula called Amazing Box, which is pretty cool. As a matter of fact, when you are experimenting with the Mandelbulb 3D software, when you're just beginning, go right to the Amazing Box formula, because you can do some amazing stuff with that. It's very detailed, very interesting, a lot of geographical structures to it, very interesting. But you'll find that under the listing of 3A, all right, Amazing Box. Just click it and assign it. Now, in order to see what I've got, I need to calculate the 3D. And so there is my amazing Mandelbulb. The problem here is that my camera is inside of the fractal. That's why it's all messy like that. And that doesn't look very good. Now, I could continue to add a couple more formulas, because I have a pretty good idea that's where I need to go. I need a couple formulas in order to create our base graphic, of which we will eventually animate. But we're going to take a minute here, and I'm going to help you understand what this is all about here. Now, I've got one formula. I'm in the alternate, so it certainly is not alternating with any other formulas, because I don't have any other formulas defined here. So the software here is trying to alternate between one formula, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. What I have found is that the Mandelbulb software really begins to show its power when you have multiple formulas. That's when the formulas start to get mixed together, where one formula will impact the properties of another formula. And you get some very interesting designs, graphical designs, when you are combining or you are dealing with multiple formulas. But I want this to be a learning series of videos as much as I want this to be a project-oriented tutorial. So let's just take a few minutes here and take a look at this and see what's going on, why this does not look like anything of very much interest. Well, in order to get a better handle on what is going on, I'm going to fire up the navigator. You'll notice that the navigator is left over from our previous stuff that we had in the main screen. So in order to pull this main graphic over to the navigator, I need to click on Parameter. All right, so that pulled that, whatever that is, over to my navigator. Now I can take a closer look and see what's going on. Now, it's very clear to me that the camera is actually inside the fractal graphic. And I pretty much get a clue to that because a lot of this orangey area here is flat, which indicates a clipping. Kind of indicates that basically the camera's view is inside the fractal. Let's see if I can illustrate that a little bit. All right, so okay, so here's there's the fractal. Now it's three-dimensional. All right, so it does have dimension, you know, in the Z order as well as the X and the Y. I'm sorry, the X and the Y. X and the Y. All right. So this is our fractal. Let's make a camera down here. Now this camera has a particular field of view. All right. Now the problem that we have is that our camera, its field of view is so close that it's actually clipping the fractal. And so, you know, that's not going to work for us. We need to find a way to be able to get the camera out of this clipping mode. Yeah, okay. And be able to kind of back off and see what we have for the, you know, for the actual graphic. So what I could do first and foremost is try to walk back. So what I'm doing is I'm actually using this button right here and I'm trying to walk back. Apparently I am so deep into this fractal that I can't even walk it out. So that's not going to work for us. So I'm going to call the parameter again to reload from the main here and basically start all over again. So walking backward didn't really help us. Now I'm kind of wondering whether or not the scale of this fractal is so big that I can't walk back far enough to get out of this fractal. So I'm going to go to this formula 1 right here. This is the formula. This is the formula number 2, which is unassigned, number 3, which is unassigned, formula 1. And I'm going to see if I can do something with this scale. There we go. Okay. So what was happening over here is that the scale of this fractal is so big that it actually is bigger than our camera. So what I've done is I've reduced the scale so that my camera is now outside of the fractal, and now I can see more of what's going on. All right, there we go. Now you'll notice here, you see this dull orange? Well, that's still clipping. That's still a clipping situation where the fractal is closer than what the camera can see. All right, and so I'm clipping that fractal. Now obviously I don't want clipping. That doesn't look good. So I'm going to pull this scale out. There we go. All right, a little bit of clipping right in there. All right, there we go. Now there's my scale, no clipping. All right. All right. So all I've done here is I've talked about how to deal with this this clipping. I'm going to send this back to main. I'm going to recalculate. Now there is my fractal with one formula, one amazing box formula where I have modified one property. All right, there we go. There's a 3.375 that came over on my scale. I had adjusted that. I didn't adjust the others. So now I have one formula where I don't have any camera clipping, and I'm on my way to being able to create something along the lines of my target graphic. And that is what we're going to continue to do in the next session. That's enough for now. I'll see you in the next session.